Hey everybody, Cole here with Classic Mini DIY, and today's episode we are going to be hacking up my old engine here. Pretty much the whole bottom end is going to come off, as well as the timing side down here, and let's get to it. Alright, like I said, we are going to be disassembling some of my engine today. Now, you can see I've got it turned on its side here, and the reason I was doing this is the convenience of having an engine stand is that you can rotate an engine all over the place to get to all the nooks and crannies that you might have a little bit more trouble getting to otherwise. And with the engine on its side like this, it allowed me to drain out all the coolant. So although you can't see the bottom side here, I did take the radiator off already. What we need from this engine are a few things. We need this flywheel housing here. We are going to need the whole transmission. This is actually going to be coming back apart so I can put my new gear set in it. I need this whole diff assembly, which is obviously part of the transmission. And then just off screen, I also need the timing cover. That's my MED timing cover. I'm really happy with that. But I will need that, plus the timing gears inside it for my new engine. So the rest of the engine basically is going to be a short block. It's going to have the actual short block, the head, and all the stuff on top. But the bottom end is going to see a different life. I'm not totally certain what I'm going to do with the short block yet. I have debated selling it. If anybody on the channel has a big interest in a 1293 block that is pretty much ready to roll, let me know. I'm not totally certain I want to sell it because these 1275 blocks are getting harder and harder to find. But if I know it's going to someone who's really going to appreciate it and use it, I might be willing to let it go. But anyways, I want to say a huge shout out to 7 Mini Parts. They are providing the majority of the stock mini parts that I'm going to be using on this build. Also, a huge shout out to MED. They have sent over the Omega pistons and the auto bias diff. I'm going to cover that in the next episode when I am taking this apart so you can see what all is going to get changed on this transmission. And then I also want to say a huge shout out to all of my patrons. For those of you who already are supporting the channel, there's now 2 ways that you can support the channel. Either you can become a patron on patreon.com, or you can become a member of the channel right through YouTube. And you get all the exact same benefits as Patreon, but you also get some fun badges and stuff that are associated with YouTube specifically. There's a button in the bottom right for becoming a member, or a link in my description if you want to support the channel that way. But aside from that, let's just dive into this. Now, the first thing I was going to start with is the clutch side down on the other side here, but I realized that it's going to really be helpful for me to start on this end. Now, there is something I have installed on this. It's a small tool I picked up from Mini Spares when I was overseas at IMM. It's a lockout tool that actually allows you to prevent the flywheel from spinning, so you can disassemble bolts like this, things that are actually in motion. Makes the whole job of disassembling things on the crankshaft so much easier. And so I've got that installed right now, meaning this can't turn, and I'm going to go ahead and take this bolt out, and I'm going to take my timing cover off first. My oil filter housing was leaking. The MED filter housing I had was actually leaking for whatever reason, and due to that, the oil kind of got, as you drive, it was getting sprayed this direction. Then it got on the fan and flung everywhere. So I've wiped this down a little bit already, but you can see there's a good bit of oil residue everywhere, unfortunately. So it helps prevent rust, but it is going to be making this job a lot messier. Anyway, first thing we're going to do, take this pulley off, and then we're going to take these cover off here so we can get to the timing system. All right, so now with that pulley out of the way, we're going to be able to get to all these Allen bolts. One thing that I am going to have to do with this supercharged build is take this, this breather hose right here. This is going to have to get blocked off because the pulley for the actual supercharger needs to go right here. Now, what that does mean is that we need to make sure that the engine can breathe in all of the other places that it would breathe. So the valve cover is one place that it breathes, and then on the other side, over out of the transfer case. So we're going to need to make sure that those are nice and open for it to breathe so that blocking this off doesn't have any negative consequences. I'm going to clean this up and I'm going to take it off. The next step is to go to the other side of the engine and take the transfer case off. So we need to get the clutch off and we need to get the flywheel off. Keep in mind that after having disassembled this side here, this camshaft right now is technically free. So if you tilted the engine with this side down, this camshaft can fall out. So just keep an eye on that. Be extra careful. Sometimes what you can do, in fact, this is what I'm going to do right now. You can simply just lightly screw in this retainer right here, just like this. Now, it doesn't have to be super tight or anything. This is just going to allow the camshaft, well, it's just going to make sure the camshaft doesn't fall out and then you don't lose all your tappets down inside. Anyway, let's rotate the engine around here and we will get to the other side where we can use our brand new puller tool. Now, as you can see here, we have a pre-Verdo clutch. That is with this big diaphragm here, the flywheel, and then the clutch disc, and then the pressure plate on the back side. So this is all going to come apart. First, we need to take out the 6 bolts here that hold the diaphragm on, and then it'll give us access to the next side where we can take apart all of the, where we can take the main flywheel bolt out, and then we can pull this sucker off of here. Now, with that out of the way, I'm going to leave these straps on here because I don't need to take them off right now. But what we do need to do is take this bolt off, and we need to knock down these lock tabs here, and then take this huge bolt off. This bolt sometimes is very hard to get off, just fair warning. All right, so now we finally get to use this brand new Guessworks puller tool. Now this is a serious puller tool. This thing is gonna get off pretty as any flywheel that you throw at it. Now this tool, this is a bespoke tool made by Guessworks, and I picked this up while I was down at IMM. But basically, this goes on the same way the other puller tools go on, but it's bigger, badder, and will get the job done. So first things first, in the kit you're given a small bolt here. This gets screwed in to your flywheel, just like this. And with this, you want this to be completely in contact with the flywheel surface there. So you want to go ahead and tighten this down. It's extremely important that that gets tightened down all the way, because if you don't do that, this can cause permanent damage to your flywheel. So that has to be tightened down all the way. One other thing is that this flywheel tool, you might think that this recessed end is going to go on the outside, but it actually goes on the inside. So you start screwing this in here, but you don't want to forget a little bit of oil before you do this. You want these threads to be oiled up, nice and greased, so that you don't damage anything on this tool. One of the biggest mistakes people make is starting off this tool and not actually greasing up those threads. It's super simple to do, and it'll make your tool last a really long time. Now the kit also comes with a few necessary bolts here to screw into the flywheel that will pull it out. So you have 3 of these. You're going to want to get the ones that match your flywheel thread, put them into the holes that are provided on your flywheel tool. Now the last thing that you're going to want to do here is make sure that this whole surface right here is parallel with the actual flywheel. You can do this by eye. It can be a little finicky, but it is important, because if you don't have an even amount of pulling force on this, this isn't going to work the way it's supposed to. And now there's a small round ball in that bolt that came with the kit. That is going to create an impression on this flywheel tool. So don't worry, that's intended. But we're going to pull this off here. And if you guys don't like loud noises, I recommend putting a set of headphones on or ear protectors on, because this can sometimes pop and be really loud. So just fair warning there as well. Now in my case there was no pop because this has gone on relatively recently. But you can see here, now this is easily done by hand, and once this is loose, like it is now, you're going to unscrew this tool, remove these bolts here, and remove the bolt that's in your flywheel because it's going to prevent the flywheel from coming off. All right, and so with that tool off, you can actually see here on the tool itself, you can see there's a small indentation. That indentation was what was left by the ball on the actual flywheel here. And then this bolt needs to come out so you can take the whole flywheel assembly off. Pretty straightforward stuff. Pretty cool though. This is an awesome tool made by Guessworks, so if you want to pick one of these up, check the link in my description. It's going to bring you to his website. And so there you can see, this was freshly refurbished by 7 Mini Parts. They actually did the modifications necessary in the machine shop to make sure that that was the right clearance, and added a brand new clutch plate, all sorts of stuff here you can see. Really came out nicely. And from what I can tell here, looks like my rear main seal might have been leaking a little bit. That is not great, but no big deal. Pretty easy to fix, although engine's out, so it doesn't really matter so much. There's your clutch disc. In this case, it's very clean, so we're going to keep it that way. The old pressure plate coming out, and it looks like there's some crud in here, but the rear main seal doesn't look like it was actually leaking. I don't know what was. It does look like I have a small chip in my crankshaft there. That's not super great. It almost looks like it was leaking from up here somewhere. Hard to say for sure though. Anyway, not the end of the world. We'll go ahead and take this off here, as well as our primary gear, all the stuff here. The locking tool obviously does nothing anymore, so that can come off. So let's start running these bolts off. All right, so transfer case is off, and you can see all of the drop gears here that are looking in great shape from what I can see here, which is awesome. Not that I was really that worried, to be honest. And so now we can take all of these gears, we can flip it upside down and decouple the gearbox from the actual block, and then we'll be done butchering this poor engine and taking all of its parts. All right, so the last thing we're going to do today is take the whole transmission case off of the block itself. Now the key with this kind of thing is to have a space to set this after you take it apart. So I got to clear off the space on my desk here, and then I'm going to lift this after I unbolt all of it, lift it off, set it right down here on my workbench, and then that'll be it for today's episode. So let's get to it. All right, so with all of that cleaned up, there's some spaces around the block here where you can actually fit the end of a pry bar into without damaging anything. You want to be extra careful when you're using pry bars and stuff because you can damage stuff pretty easily. But in this case, I know there's a good spot right back. Here, and then there should be some space in here for me to lift a little bit. Now, all we're going to be doing with the pry bars is lifting this so you're breaking the seal along the gasket face here. Once that's broken, you should be able to just lift this off of here. All right, gearbox is off. We have a good look at the crank again here. And of course it is going to turn over, but I think it's a requirement anytime you have access to it to manually spin it. My spark plugs are still in the center too, so it's a little bit pressurized, but obviously spins really nicely, no problems there. And well, with that, we're done with the block. So I think this is a pretty good time to wrap up this episode. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so that is going to wrap up the New Year's special of Classic Mini DIY. As you can see, gearbox is back off. This is going to get disassembled. Everything is looking really nice in here, which is kind of sad, but you know, it is what it is. We are going to be taking apart pretty much the whole gearbox again so that we can put in our new gear set and a new differential. Using the same 2.95 final drive gear, we're going to put it on an LSD, an auto bias limited slip differential. That I will show you guys on the next episode. And yeah, it's kind of bittersweet seeing this thing back apart, you know? I built it because I really wanted to tidy up and like really tighten up my Bad Wolf engine, and it's been awesome. I mean, it's been a really fun engine, but I think the supercharger is going to be just as fun. You know, while we're here, I can actually show you guys on the back of my existing. So if you guys wanted to see how this actually is going to sit, we have the new supercharger here. And the way that this sits, I'm on the back side of the engine right now. It gets lined up just like that on the intake manifold where the intake used to sit. Your exhaust still comes out the same exact way, but you can see here the pulley has to go down past the what used to be the breather down on this side, and it gets added to a new crankshaft pulley which has your belt for your water pump on it, but also the belt for the supercharger. Sits on the back here, the EFI sits here, and then the intake goes up the front here or has a foam filter right at the front. I want to make a custom intake that goes off the side. But it's tight. You know, there's not a lot of room for extra stuff in here. It's really cool because of that. You know, you got to make it all work, which is fun. But it's going to be a challenge, but one we're going to do together. So let's set this back up over here. But like I said, that's it for this episode of Classic Mini DIY. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm still in Italy right now, but this video is dropping while I'm gone. And yeah, if you guys have any questions about what I did on this episode, post them in the comment section below. And just a reminder, there are 2 new ways to support the channel if you're interested in becoming a continuing member. There is the option to become a member right here on YouTube now. Comes with custom flair, all sorts of fun stuff, plus all of the same benefits that you would get on Patreon. Or you can go over to Patreon if you don't want to spend your money on YouTube, but maybe you still want to support the channel. And you get all the same benefits minus the YouTube stuff that comes with obviously becoming a member right here. But thank you so much. And until I see you guys in the next episode, thanks for joining me, and enjoy those minis and motor on.